We're getting into the mega cap earnings. We're going to see a lot more of those over the course of this week and next week, and that's really going to be kind of driving the market again, because that's what's been driving the market. Those guys are going to continue to support the market simply because of their weighting within the indexes. But here's what you need to know before the bell this morning. Absolutely nothing wrong with the markets. We are just on the verge of breaking out to a new 52-week high. And, this has really kind of been the case this year, is that the markets kind of go through these very brief consolidation phases, and then we kind of break out to a new 52-week high. One of the differences this time is that the market's never retraced back to that 20-day moving average. And that's been kind of the hallmark of this market really ever since the beginning of this year, as we get these kind of pullbacks and these little bit of corrections in the markets back to the 20-day. And that would be kind of a level of support. The markets would kind of work to an oversold condition, then bounce off of that. We never really got that. Over the past week or so, we've just pretty much traded sideways above that 20-day moving average. In fact, fairly decently trading above that. And the markets have maintained this kind of MACD buy signal as well. So again, stocks are doing fine. The buy signals are in place. Absolutely nothing to be concerned about here. Markets remain overbought here on a short-term basis. But again, because of the bid that's being put underneath stocks by the earnings right now that are coming in, that's keeping the markets well elevated. Again, once we kind of get through earnings over the course of the next week or so, and really get the bulk of those big cap gains behind us, we may see a better opportunity for this market to correct. And again, as we've been talking about, the deviations are just too great right now. That gravity that we were talking about earlier has to pull those stock prices back down at some point. The question is just, what's going to be that cause? Is it simply just going to be the fact that everybody's kind of in the pool? If you take a look at consumer and investor sentiment, it's getting very, very elevated again. We're back into extreme greed territory. You take a look at the long positions of investors. They are very long the market right now. It's particularly on the more speculative side and in the option side of the market, where you see a lot of call options being bought. Investors are getting very long biased in the markets, basically saying everybody's now back in the pool. As Sam Stovall once said, he says, if everybody's in the pool, right, then who's left to buy? That's the question. Of course, that ultimately leads to some type of at least short-term correction. And again, just as we've been talking about now for the last couple of weeks, we need to get further exposure to the markets, no doubt about that. The question is the patience to wait for that correction. Again, what the markets are really good at doing here is keeping this elevation running, and it just pulls at you and says, I've got to do something. I just feel this pressure to do something right now. That's how markets work. Markets drag you in by doing these type of advances. They got this way on every last fabric of your resolve until that breaks, and you finally say, just forget it, I'm in, and you start buying stocks near their peak, and then that's when you get the correction. It is that last pull, that capitulation that drags investors in. So this is the hard part of the markets is, look, we've got lots of time ahead of us. We've got years ahead of us to invest. We've got years ahead of us to get into markets as we need to. Just be patient. You will get a correction. It's going to weigh on every last fray of your nerves, but patience is the difficult part here. So if you need to get exposure, I caution you about jumping in here. We're just simply too overbought right now. You're going to get a correction in the next month or so. Use that as an opportunity to increase exposure. But just, again, you just take the risk of jumping in now that you're going to be buying near a short-term peak. But that's what you need to know before the bell.